Happy New Year. Allow everybody to take their seats. I see Wilbert's in the house. It's 2025. That's a good year. I don't know why, but I think it's a good year. It's a nice round number. Reminds me of quarters or something. Casinos, whatever. I saw Dr. Narini out here. There he is, down front. Welcome, Dr. Narini. You have chosen to start your new year at the best college in Maricopa. I know you can't say that, but I can. It's down here for hill for you if you go to any others. Welcome. We are truly glad that you're with us as always. Thank you for your support and taking time to be with us. It really does mean a lot to us that you're here and cheering us on and learning about what we do and spending time with us. We really do genuinely appreciate you being here with us. It means so much. This morning we have two speakers joining us to talk with us a little bit about AI. We talked in the fall about learning more and more and digging in deeper with AI. And then, as you all are aware, we're really enhancing our use of data to inform decisions and directions that we take around decisions that we make as an institution as part of our Achieving the Dream work. And the two work hand in hand, both AI and data. And our speakers are going to come and join us this morning to offer some insight about how all of this meshes, both in the real world, but also in the application in higher ed. Our first speaker is Sawyer Coops. He is an analytic professional with 15 years of experience in both private and public sectors. He holds a Master of Science in Business Analytics from Quinnipiac University and a Bachelor's of Arts in Digital Communication from Calvin University. His expertise extends to healthcare technology industry, having spent time on EMR, Giant Epic's analytics team, and providing analytics consulting services to healthcare systems. Sawyer also served in the United States Air Force from 2013 to 2017 and led some of the United States' finest airmen across various operational capacities around the world. In his present role, Sawyer leads a team of analytics, business intelligence, and data science personnel at STC Health, a preeminent source of vaccine intelligence in the healthcare ecosystem. Joining Sawyer is Dr. Sam McGee, a data scientist in predictive analytics division at STC Health, which created the first U.S. immunization registry and whose network and systems now process hundreds of millions of vaccinations per year. He currently works across many projects developing ML AI solutions to existing IIS problems, while also ideating, testing, and creating systems that are shaping the future of IIS software and data management. He previously earned his doctorate of speech and hearing science at Arizona State University, where his research focused on quantitative classification of bilingual subtypes and individual differences between these groups. He is passionate about data storytelling and enjoys the process of working with diverse knowledge backgrounds to become similarly passionate about data processes, statistics, and niche problem sets. Thank you for welcoming them so warmly to Phoenix College. Sawyer?
Okay, good morning. We are very happy to be here. I am Sawyer Copes, and I am joined by Dr. Sam McGee here. And we are from STC Health. We're just down the road. We're on South 1st Street, about a block south of the Sun Stadium. And we're here to go through a little bit of AI background, how it applies to us, ways we see it applied in our team, more broadly in the ecosystem. We work in immunizations specifically, healthcare more generally, but really I think much of what we're going to say applies to the industry at large, in tech, but also in the education space, especially as you all equip people to come work at places like STC Health and some of our partners. So to get things started though, I have here in my hand an envelope sealed, and we do a lot of different ideation in our division, and much to my chagrin, our director of predictive analytics has taken a shining to jokes and cartoons, and that's a little bit of carryover from our CEO, Mike Popovich, who is a big fan of cartoons and jokes. And so Dr. McGee here, not necessarily against my wishes, but a little bit to my dismay, has focused on creating, on the side, as a side project, a large language learning model that specifically creates jokes. And it's more than knock-knock jokes. You can give it prompts. You can give it a spiciness level, as he calls it. And so he wrote a model, and our director of predictive analytics used it to generate a joke and assured me that it's safe to read. And so we're going to read it live on stage, a dangerous thing to do here.
Now, neither of us know what's in this envelope. It's a sealed envelope, so this is the closest we can get to a live coding demo, so bear with us.
Okay. The joke. I told my AI assistant to write a joke about AI, but it just gave me a 10-page essay on the ethics of humor. I guess that's what I get for trying to outsource my comedy to a machine. Now, I'm starting to think the only thing AI is really good at is making us feel like we're not smart enough to use it. And that's pretty accurate. That's about how we feel sometimes. We were just talking with Councilwoman Pastor about the use of AI, and really the only way to, sometimes detect the use of AI is with other AI, and so the snake starts eating its tail a little bit. But we'll get into that as we go here. So, quick background, who is STC Health? Like I mentioned, we are a software company. Our mission is to use technology to eradicate vaccine-preventable disease. Vaccines obviously are one of the most influential creations in mankind and save millions of lives over the course of history. STC Health specifically, we work in both the public and private sectors. We connect public jurisdictions, so state immunization registries like Arizona, as well as pharmacy partners like CVS and Walgreens. We help connect them to those registries, and then we transit either queries looking up a patient's immunization history or updates sending a patient's vaccination update to a registry. And of course, all of that traffic generates lots of data, which is where Dr. McGee and I spend most of our time. So we were founded in 1988. We took the first IIS, and that's Immunization Information System, and so that's the Arizona State Immunization Registry. So any shot that any of you have had in Arizona resides in that registry. And you can access your records if you would like via a product called MyIR Mobile, if you'd like to see them, free of charge. STC formed our analytics division in 2017 with a single member. This is important. STC's IIS platform migrated to the cloud, so moving away from on-prem servers to the cloud in 2019. And then we, the analytics division, deployed our first machine learning model in 2022. That part we'll get to more later about what kinds of models those are. But that time frame between our division forming in 2017 and the first model being launched in 2022 is interesting. And when we say launched, that really means put into production. And a big part of that lag there is that, in general, 85% of models that you create, machine learning models, AI models, fail. So it's a relatively low success rate. And if you think about technology between 2017 and 2022, a lot happened, right? Everything went to the cloud, computing got faster, storage got cheaper, bigger, and what that does is enable you to try things faster, fail faster, as our CTO, Joe Kelly, likes to say. And that's very specifically important in AI because most of the time we fail, right? A major league hitter, if they can hit 300, they're doing great, 30% success rate. We're looking at 10 to 15% success rate, so we have to be able to try things quicker, and that's a lot of what those technology advances have done. So where are we now in the ecosystem? This is an old graphic. I continue to use it because it continues to apply. In general, the kind of light-colored area is where I see most of our ecosystem specifically, and really what this shows is the maturity curve kind of along the analytics spectrum. Almost everyone, in the last 20, 30 years has had some kind of retrospective looks at data, dashboards, reports, looking backwards at data. That gets a little bit into the diagnostics. You can suss out a little bit from those of why did something happen. People are starting to get into the predictive, what will happen, and then you see the green band, then there's still some decision being enacted. And then really what we're starting to see people start to lean into is the prescriptive, not only what will happen, but then also what should I do ahead of time to prepare for it. And that's the exciting part, and that's where a lot of, we spend a lot of our time, helping AI technology in general be a force multiplier for our customers. And then, of course, that all leads into action. Generally still driven by a human at this point. In our ecosystem, we don't see a ton yet of either willingness or comfortability or just maturity to let AI make decisions in lieu of people. And I think that is likely to continue in healthcare. It's generally not something that's going to replace. It's generally something that's going to augment, make faster, be a force multiplier. So in terms of our division and how we align ourselves skill set wise, and how this applies to you all, we generally operate in these 4 pillars, business intelligence, epidemiology, data science, machine learning. The left side is roughly where we were 5 years ago, just in terms of volume of skill sets and time and people that we've put towards each of those. And the right side is more what we look like now. I do think it's important to call out, business intelligence, and by that I mean dashboards, reports, are kind of tried and true, old hat, maybe not as exciting anymore. I don't think that this is a ladder, a ratchet system where once you know how to do predictive models, you don't do those kinds of retrospective looks at data. I think these all build on each other. And what that means is that I think there will always be demand for people who know how to effectively tell a story with a visual. Showing a million-line CSV file of data to someone isn't very helpful. You need someone who knows how to look at that, analyze it, perhaps use AI to understand it, but then create a visual to effectively tell a story. Epidemiology, same kind of thing. We have some brilliant epidemiologists who help our public health jurisdictions look at projects, understand what interventions work, how to move the needle with public health, and where we see them use AI is to accelerate that. We have a great example. What used to take 15 hours running something locally and doing manual analysis, building out these high confidence pipelines using cloud computing and some of our more advanced AI resources, can take an hour. So it basically enables them to cut that time down drastically. Data science, same kind of thing. What used to mean writing 7,000 lines of SQL, structured query language to take, code out every known, and hopefully, all the unknown unknowns, can be distilled down now into a model that can be trained using the knowledge you have from those, but then also kind of softens the edges of those data. And then machine learning is obvious. That's just something we continue to grow into and find new and more creative ways to expose those models. So all that to say, from my perspective, skill set wise, I'm stealing a phrase from a professor of economics at NYU, Scott Galloway, but I'm an AI optimist. So I don't see AI taking any of the jobs in our division, for instance, or even in the other divisions in our company. I see it accelerating them. So I don't necessarily think that people's jobs are at stake from AI, but I think that someone, if given 2 candidates and there's someone who knows how to use AI to do epidemiology or data science and someone who doesn't, likely the person that does know how to employ it in their realm is going to have an advantage. And I think that's where having that understanding and leaning into it, not as the ends, but as a means to an end, in terms of still have to know their core competency. You have to know epidemiology if you're going to be an epidemiologist, but then using AI to amplify that and show how faster and smarter you can work is really the way we see the ecosystem going. So I like to surround myself with smart people, so I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Dr. McGee here to take us through.
Great, thanks for that, Sawyer. So with that, we're just going to do a brief overview. Let me just check. Is this one on? All right, so we'll do a brief overview of the history of AI and sort of how I like to picture it. It's not just computer science, computer programming, et cetera. There's certainly plenty of that, but it really involves nowadays the convergence of multiple sets of knowledge and skill sets and just developed knowledge over time. So we'll start with goodest place of any, 1950s with Alan Turing's Turing test. So the premise of the Turing test was if you could position somebody in a space where they're talking with somebody and they couldn't distinguish whether that was a real human being or a computer, an automated device of some kind, that stood for that would qualify as artificial intelligence. So nowadays, we're well past that, but back then this was a revolutionary idea that somebody wouldn't be able to tell whether it was a human being on the other end of a line or a computer just going through rote algorithms. At the same time, neural networks started getting loosely developed, and this is how I approach it. I'm a psychologist by training, and in the 1950s, Hubel and Wiesel were doing a lot of research on the occipital lobe and the visual cortex. And this is one of the oldest structures of the brain. For humans, it's extremely important to be able to see, process our environment through that. And it's a complex but also simple system. So the way that they discovered that the visual cortex was organized is you have these first layers that are processing the signal coming from your eyes, and those just identify whether there's light present in certain situations, like in certain orientations, etc. Then the next layer below, it starts determining what direction that light is. Is it a vertical line, horizontal line, diagonal line? And then another layer below that, you start to get into things like intersections. Is it a perfect intersection perpendicularly? Is it a slightly offset? And so on and so on. So what the visual cortex and the occipital lobe is doing is it's processing all of these senses on a simple level, making a deterministic yes-no decision from there. And then it's layering it all so that we can see this whole world in front of us. But it's doing it through a layer, a neural network. And what they didn't realize at the time, this formed the basis of what we now call neural networks with computers. Moving forward from there, in the 1960s and 1980s, we had the development of the general problem solver and other algorithm developments. Now, the general problem solver, it could handle what was called well-formed formulas. I had to write that down because that just sounds so repetitive. Well-formed formulas were clear logic problems, things like the Tower of Hanoi, something that could be algorithmically worked through, but it required multiple steps in order to process. Sometimes it required taking a step back and going forward again. General problem solvers were pretty good to a point of solving these kinds of problems, but they failed when you put them in a real-world situation of enter the room, find the glasses that are on the table. They couldn't solve that kind of a problem. At the same time, back in psychology, we had the emergence of the study of natural language and cognitive revolution. Now, Noam Chomsky was the big name, probably still is one of the biggest names. Most people, especially in Arizona, recognize him. And this was a response to psychology at the time. It was all behaviorism. The idea was that the mind was a black box that you couldn't study prior to this time, and you had to just study what you could physically observe in some way. So it was stimulus in, behavior out, and whatever happens in the mind couldn't be studied. Well, the cognitive revolution paired with the linguistic and psychology of psycholinguistics, psychology of language, and behaviorism couldn't explain how we acquire language. In order for behaviorism to work in this sense, babies would have to be exposed to every single word and every single formulation of a sentence that they could possibly ever repeat so that they could get that stimulus in order to give it back. So through this 1960s through 1980s, we had this just explosion of cognitive research when people realized, oh, there's more happening in the mind than we can physically observe. And it became accepted to study. Through the 1990s and 2000s, we saw cognitive science, as it became to be known, really bring in more interdisciplinary approaches. So AI and computer science became a main focus in cognitive science, along with things like language, behavior, and other focuses in cognitive science. And at the same time, cognitive science started to influence AI and AI development from there. Deep Blue was a computer. It was designed only for chess, and it famously beat the chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov in 1997. It's estimated that it could do about 11.3 gigaflops. That's a measurement of how fast it can process process information. I believe it could process 200 million moves at one time. But to put that into today's context, an Apple M1 Pro, I looked it up, does about 5.3 teraflops. So we are light years ahead of where Deep Blue was. And through the mid-2000s and even going into now, we had the DARPA autonomous vehicle challenges. So one of the first ones in 2005, they had vehicles that autonomously traveled 132 miles through rugged desert terrain and were able to successfully navigate that. Following that, a couple years later, they were able to navigate 60 miles in an urban environment, including traffic, stop signs, parking, etc. Going forward from there, they've had challenges for autonomous vehicles in disaster response, drone swarms, so how all those drones float together in the air without hitting each other, and most recently, and very interesting, kind of little odd to me, is helicopters and F-16 jets. So they're doing autonomous testing with that. Going forward into 2010. 2010s, the tens, we had this proliferation of artificial general intelligence. Now, in some ways, this is kind of like what we see on our Apple phones with Siri. It's not great, but it does a pretty good job at most tasks that you throw at it. And at the same time, we had this burst in big data, especially through social media, as we had this massive quantity of data that you or I and anybody in this room could spend a lifetime just trying to look through 1 year or even a month of that data. But we started to be able to collect this data and started trying to figure out how to actually analyze it and use it meaningfully. At the same time, deep learning and task-specific networks, sort of like those neural networks, but much more designed towards specific tasks, not even just the general task of seeing, but like identifying when there's a circle present in an image that it's seeing. Those started to develop and become really well formulated from there. And of course, now in the 2020s, we've seen the proliferation of large language models. So these are, this is what we're familiarly known with, like ChatGPT, OpenAI, Meta, Llama. And these are models that are trained to interpret how words fit in a vectorized space. You don't have to worry too much about that, but it's math. It's how words relate to each other semantically across more networks, more vectors than you or I can possibly visualize or even imagine in our head. At the same time, we had the proliferation of GPU accessibility, so graphic processing units, our ability to develop these, and also our ability to access them, just you or I, rather than Google's top scientists. We started being able to access very, very powerful GPUs through the 2020s. So where are we now? And most commonly, we hear about AI and machine learning. Artificial intelligence, AI, is a broad, general task completion. It has some kind of understanding, air quotes around that, and it interprets the words that are being given to it. Now, it's not really understanding language in the same way that you or I do, but it's using a mathematical model to predict what the most likely semantic relation between the words being given to it and the words that it's producing should be. At the same time, we have machine learning. These are much more specialized and task-focused. They're algorithmic in nature, and they're very fast, but they're very brittle. They're trained for a specific purpose, and if you pick up that machine learning model and try and put it somewhere else, it'll break. Whereas AI, it's less specific and usually less accurate in a machine learning environment or compared to machine learning, but you can generally pick up these broad purpose artificial intelligence models and move them between different spaces. And what that's allowed us to do is we've had a lot of adoption advances for purpose-driven advances. So in the realm of human genome discovery, which is not my specialty, we've had some big advances thanks to AI in discovering more and more features about mapping the human genome so that we can understand, better understand how our cells work together so that we can develop better medicine, solve complex genetic disorders, etc. In the related realm of protein folds, we can start to predict and generate how different proteins fold together so that we can understand different cell behaviors. So we actually saw this used heavily through from 2020 in understanding COVID and COVID's variants and what we could expect from it. And quantum computing, very complex just by its nature, but it's very hard to operationalize because it's hard to explain in the first place, but AI has been helping researchers who specialize in this in optimizing their sequences for determining quantum outputs from there. And quantum computing has the promise of speeding up our already lightning fast processing going forward, and AI is helping push that. Now, how we're using machine learning and AI at STC Health, it comes in many different flavors. So one of the first ways we've been using it is in deduplication. So we get all those records of different vaccination events coming through, and we have demographic data, and sometimes those records come through twice. Sometimes somebody gets 2 vaccinations at the same time. And we have to identify when a record is the same person, as well as when the record is a duplicate of the same event, or when it should be when 2 records should be considered different people, even if they have the same name or similar characteristics. And historically, we've done this through those SQL procedures of 7,000 lines of SQL code going on and looking at the different factors involved of the data that we can see. And it does a pretty good job. It narrows it down to a much smaller field so that we don't have to have a human being standing there looking at every decision and saying, yes, this is the same person, no, this is not the same person. But it still leaves a lot of gray area. We're not totally sure if this should be the same person or if this is a different person. And so we still have individuals who are going through and doing these merges or creating new patients. They spend many hours every year doing this over and over. And that's called manual deduplication. Sometimes they make mistakes, we're all human, and they incorrectly merge 2 patients who should be 2 different patients. What we're doing with machine learning and AI is we're handling these attention-based tasks where you have to look at something that's 2 pieces of information that are coming in, you have to make a decision, and you have to do that over and over and over and over while being detail-oriented to select specific pieces of information. I did a little bit of math with this one, and if we give an average of 5 seconds per decision, which some of them will be faster, some of them will be a lot slower, and some of our jurisdictions will see more than 100,000, some of them will see fewer than 100,000, but let's say there's 100,000 of these decisions to be made every year at 5 seconds per decision. That amounts to about 3.5 full-time weeks of 8-hour days just going in there and spending all day without making a mistake, without taking a break, just staring and saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no about all these decisions. It's extremely exhausting. It's called decision fatigue, and we don't expect people to be able to do this for 3.5 straight weeks, 8-hour days. So we're using AI and machine learning to help narrow that down so it's not 100,000 records that they're comparing each year, and more like 10,000 or 15,000, which is a much more manageable task over the course of a year. We also have some agent-based modeling and imputation. Now, these are complex models, which I could spend another 20 minutes talking about instead. But the gist of it is, these are complicated statistical situations where the variables in question don't necessarily have standard distributions, and we shouldn't expect them to have standard distributions. So they're computationally demanding, the distributions are very variable, and they require thousands of repetitions. Again, great case for AI and ML to be used here rather than a human being doing these thousands of repetitions. We're also using a new technology called vector databases. So rather than considering all of our patient databases as human readable, so we can read a first name, last name, address, etc., we're leveraging the fact that it's a computer making these decisions, and we're giving it to the computer in a computer accessible language through those large language models. At the same time, we're also doing help desk, chatbot type stuff, as well as generative AI and decision support, just like you see ChatGPT and little chatbots pop up in almost every website you browse to these days. And we're making those, we're integrating multiple advances here, and we're giving it access to large quantities of our database, as well as our specific documentation, so that they can be finely tuned to respond to individuals' specific questions about the products that we're using. So back to where we're at now, this all sounds great, but we do have some careful considerations as we advance, most notably some of the data center power demands and compounded data biases. So AI is not going to solve all of our problems. One of the biggest issues as we continue to use more and more AI is that the computing costs are massive, relatively speaking. There was a paper that said in January 2024, AI and cryptocurrencies used 460 terawatt hours, which was just under 2% of global electricity demand. If you had a really great lamp in your house that was using 2% of your power bill every month, you'd probably want to say, can we make this lamp a little bit less, even if it's a fantastic lamp? That same paper estimated that a 100-word email written by ChatGPT uses the equivalent of 1 bottle of water to cool those data centers. AI is not solving this itself, but we do have some fantastic researchers. The Arizona Technology Council specifically is talking about designing data centers to leverage some of the properties of physics so that we don't have to use as much water to cool some of these data centers. And it's not a new issue, but it's a rapidly growing issue with AI, especially as we take our hands off the wheels more. Compounded biases in data. We've all heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out. If there's an unknown bias in our data, or if we know that there's a bias in there and we give it to it anyways, that bias is just going to build on itself in the data set. So representation or lack thereof in training these AI models has real-world consequences. And again, AI doesn't know what it doesn't know. If you don't give it data to uncover some of these biases, it's not going to figure out that there's a bias. So we still need humans in the loop, very much determining what data should be in there and what the data should look like. So obviously, big future and opportunities available to us. I think the way that we need to go with these tools is we need to be very thoughtful about our application. It's not to turn away from it. You know, these tools are here, genie's out of the bottle. And we need to understand how they work and where they should work for us. As Sawyer said, it's a force multiplier for our customers. We're seeing, if we think about that deduplication example, if you can have individuals turn from 3.5 weeks of just repetitive deduplication work and start to be able to use their actual community knowledge and their epidemiological knowledge to make meaningful change within their health community rather than just working behind a computer to deduplicate data, that's going to be a lot better outcome in the long term for that community and for the world at large. Again, providers spend more time doing their jobs versus looking at a computer. It's also really good at anomaly detection and system monitoring, whereas we have an attention span that dips in and out irregularly. I'm very guilty of it myself. Computers will stay attent as long as you have them tuned to it. So you can start to get early signal detection about when your data is starting to shape itself in a way that isn't expected and start working on that early to identify why, and if there's a problem with it, start solving that problem earlier. And it's increasingly becoming a lower barrier for entry for data mining and data literacy, rather than having to learn Python, SQL, any of these coding languages that we can throw different names at you for. You can just go to a lot of these large language models, give it your data in some capacity, and in plain English or whatever language you would like to use, ask it a question, and it'll start to develop the necessary queries behind the scenes for you to start looking at your data and explore it. So now you don't have to have a year of coding training to really understand how your data ultimately look. So big takeaway, AI and ML, it's a tool. It's wherever it goes, it's always going to be a tool. It's important that we understand how it works, when to use it, and where we should be applying those outcomes as the humans in the loop. We're in the driver's seat, so let's just make sure we're ready to actually drive the thing.
Thanks, Sam. The last thing, from my perspective, I wanted to say as relates to you all is that, like Sam said, the barrier to entry is getting lower and lower, and the temptation, and we know as well as anyone, the temptation is to just jump into a new tool and just start hammering away and making a model. There's never been, in my opinion, a more critical time to value higher ed. We can teach the tech. I can teach the syntax of the programming. We can teach the platform, whatever machine learning platform. But if someone shows up and wants to be an epidemiologist and doesn't know epidemiology, or wants to be a business intelligence analyst and doesn't know how to tell a story with data, it doesn't matter how much tech we teach them, doesn't matter what syntax we teach them. They don't know their core competency, it's not going to be effective. And that applies across the board. If you want to be a short story writer and you don't go, you don't study it and you just start using ChatGPT to write drafts, it's not going to work. It's not going to be good. And that applies universally. If you're going to be a chemist and you start coming up with formulas based on a model you develop, it's not going to work because you don't understand the core competency of what you're trying to do. So all that to say, I don't think there's ever been a time where what you all are doing, this is the most important it's ever been because there is so much temptation and the barrier is so low to generate passable content using AI and ML. And the much preferred outcome from our perspective is to still be experts in your domain and then use these tools, like Sam mentioned, to accelerate that and use it as something that can help you move smarter and faster as opposed to do your work for you. So all that to say, thank you all for what you do and for making the time. I know we went over, but we appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome to stay with us for the remainder of our conversation, but if you have work back at the office, just know that you won't hurt our feelings if you need to leave. I wanted to share with you that Adriana had some family loss over the holidays and is not with us this morning, so please send good thoughts her way. We have a much less attractive person coming up. Sorry, Ty. Yeah. You can put on a wig, give it a whirl. Yeah. Anyway, Ty is going to, has graciously agreed to fill in and support Adriana this morning, but she did have several family commitments that she needed to attend to and couldn't be here with us today, but send her good thoughts and good vibes and a little extra support when she comes back to campus. She's been carrying a lot, and we all love her very dearly. But Ty, I wanted to say I have a couple of extra jobs if you're looking for, you're bored. Ty's carrying a lot of important work for the college. And I wanted to say thank you, Ty. He steps up. He never says no. You got to work on that a little bit. If you're looking for a New Year's resolution, he's a gem. And is leading some incredibly important work for the institution. And I wanted to just say thank you because he does everything with a great attitude, with a high degree of professionalism and accuracy, and also a wonderful sense of humor. And if you're looking for someone to help you out, he's always a good person to call on. And thank you for stepping in for Adriana today. And we just want to say thank you for all the important work that you're leading, much of which he's going to talk about this morning. And one of that, the biggest and most important for the institution is our HLC reaccreditation and reaffirmation visit, which will happen next spring. And so when Ty calls you or sends you an email and says, hey, I need this or that, just remember that he is wearing multiple hats. And so don't put him off and respond with a smile and graciousness, because he is wearing multiple hats. And he juggles them really well. So Dr. Wellborn, it's all yours.
Truth in advertising. So, good morning, Phoenix College. So, thank you to our guest speakers this morning. I have to follow you guys. This sucks. But I was asked to talk to you about HLC today, about our reaccreditation work. So that's what we'll do. I'll try not to take up too much of your time. So, and how does our clicker work? You push the button? It's not, there we go, now it's working. So, HLC, it's not my field. So, HLC, we are on, as an institution, a 10-year accreditation cycle. We are very near the end of that accreditation cycle right now. Last year, it seems to be running together. Last year, I believe, we did our multi-location site visit with HLC, which we passed with flying colors. We had a flawless visit. And next year, we get to come back, they get to come back, and we get to do it again. So it's exciting, right? So, you know, the HLC accreditation work, it's not a gotcha. They're not here to see whether we're up to anything nefarious or anything like that. It's about, with our assurance arguments, our reaccreditation documentation, it's about sharing our story. It's about sharing with HLC the good work that we do every day as a college. And we do a lot of great work. And it's just a matter of making sure that we can capture that, we can document it, we can provide the evidence to show that we really are doing all this wonderful work. And that's really what the visit is about, you know, when it comes. It comes in March 26th. So it seems like a long way off, but I mean, in academia, we know that's right around the corner. So when we started preparing for this, this is the timeline that we built in fall of 24, or 23, excuse me, to prepare for the visit in March coming up. So we established this timeline. We established several teams to start helping us with the HLC work, because this is far more work than, you know, a single person can do. I appreciate the shout out and everything, but dozens of you have been working on this with me, and thank you very much for that. If I had a bunch, I'd hand out gold stars to everybody today, but they're in my other jacket. So we're a year and a half into our preparation already. We're still on track. We're doing a great job, and we've got several teams that have been working on the various aspects of the argument that HLC wants to see from us. And as you can see here, we laid out a plan, we built our teams, made up of administrators, faculty, staff, you know, people from across all levels of the college, all sorts of jobs, because nobody can be an expert in all the areas that we have to touch on to effectively tell our story. So at this point in time, we have draft arguments written. We have draft evidence files. We have pages and pages of words telling our good story, you know, for HLC. So by the end of this semester, we will have those final drafts really cleaned up, tightened up, make sure that we validate all the statements that we have written, that we ensure that we have evidence to support everything that we're sharing with HLC. And we will eventually be sharing that out with y'all as a community so you also can look at them and make sure we haven't missed anything. Show us, point out the commas that we missed and what evidence files we may still be lacking and things like that. So that time is coming. So basically that's my way of saying, you know, there are dozens of you that have been helping, and if you haven't been lucky enough yet, your time's coming. I see you nodding no back there, Laura. It's too late for you. So so we'll have pretty final drafts by the end of this semester. In summer, we'll complete, gathering the evidence, anything else that we're lacking. We'll look at that information. Fall is when we give it the last hard look over, make sure that we haven't missed anything. And fall is what we call our lock date. That's when we actually have to submit all the documentation to HLC. And it's ultimately thousands of pages of materials. And that's why this is a multi-year process that we're working on. And then we submit at the end of fall. That gives the reviewers that are going to come and visit us time to look at all of our materials, familiarize themselves with our story, and then they come pay us a visit on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of March in 26. So be on good behavior in March 26. No, I'm kidding. And that's when most of you have been through this in one way or another with us, whether it was taking part in the multi-location visit when we had HLC here, or whether it was when we were looking at getting our bachelor's degrees approved and HLC visited us then. Most of us have taken part in the sorts of sessions, interviews, and so on that they ask us to do. So this isn't new. This isn't a gotcha, like I said. It's just making sure that we're prepared to tell our story in the best way possible. One of the things that I've not shared yet, though, because, there's always got to be something, is in the summer of this year, HLC actually changed the criteria that they use for accrediting colleges. No problem. We knew it was coming, and we've already dealt with it. But I think we are the first college in Maricopa that will be hosting an accreditation visit under the new revised criteria. So in some ways, we're a guinea pig for the district. And that doesn't concern me in any way. They changed the accreditation criteria in the summer. We have already adjusted the work to accommodate those changes. So we're still on track despite that. So in short, I know you guys here love nothing more than reading accreditation materials. So anyone that is in that boat, I'll send you the link to the HLC documents. But here's the very, very brief summary of what they've done. They have adopted what they call a mission-reflective approach to accreditation. And I think this actually helps us a great deal. We have a very important mission here at the college. We do a great job of executing that mission. And what HLC has said is that now when we give them our assurance arguments, our documentation for reaccreditation, it has to center our mission. We have to show how we honor our accreditation requirements through how we execute our mission, if that makes sense. So the mission is front and center in our story, as it should be. So this is not scary. This is, frankly, it's the lens we should be telling our story through. They have consolidated criteria for those of you that are accreditation aficionados. There were formerly 5 criteria for accreditation for a college. Now there are 4. All those materials that dealt with teaching and learning specifically have been combined together into one criteria for us. And then, last but not least, they reframed some things, they rephrased, they rearranged some of the materials in the criteria. So what we did in the summer was we sort of threw all the jigsaw pieces on the desk, the jigsaw puzzle, and sort of rearranged them, what we had been doing to match the new format that they want to see. That's pretty much it. So we're on track. Thank you all for the work. I will be asking for more of it, as we go along, but we're on track. We have our drafts ready. HLC later this year will be telling us specifically who our peer reviewers are. Normally, they send people with extensive experience in community college systems like ours. So, we look forward to a good visit. All right. All right. And that really is Dr. Heather Cruzy. All right, have a good morning.
So good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a restful, rejuvenating break. If you were like me, you crammed as many hectic experiences in your time away, and you were happy to be back at work. So it's great to be with you all this morning. And I want to thank our speakers also. That was really thought-provoking. I was looking back and seeing if I could find admissions and records staff, because all I was thinking about was the application for fraud detection in our admissions and records world, and how much our fraud squad would appreciate that. But in true form, I can't stand up here and not talk a little bit about enrollment and retention and completion, so I wanted to share a brief enrollment update with you all. We continue to trend in the right direction, and I shared in the fall, how that compared to our pre-pandemic numbers. It continues to look very positive. We continue to make modest increases. Our most recent spring enrollment numbers as of January 3rd showed a 6% increase in headcount, but last night we did have our first EC, or enrollment cancellation. So you will see some fluctuation in Mark's next report, and that'll continue to fluctuate, obviously, through the first week and beyond. But we're looking very, very good. But what I really want to talk about this morning is retention. So recently our chancellor sent out a note basically indicating that we are all in on retention. Well, we've been talking about retention for as long as I've been in higher ed, and it has existed as a critical measure in so many of the reports, so many of the college priorities, so many of the plans that we produce. And I've just shared a couple examples. If you are familiar with our college strategic plan, you know that we've done some great work around supporting first-gen students and really looking at where specific gaps exist, and that's spelled out very explicitly, and there's some great work happening in that space. Also in our enrollment management plan, we have persistence as a goal, again, looking specifically at some underrepresented populations and how we move the needle, not just as a whole for all of our students, but also where those gaps exist. But if you look at that top line, we continue to emphasize the need for us to look locally at our individual work. It's really difficult to move the big needle for our college population as a whole. And so, it's the analogy of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, thinking about what we can do individually within our programs, within our departments, to move the needle on specific cohorts that we have influence over, and then also looking at systems. So we've made great progress with guided pathways, in looking at a redesign of academic advising, redesign of dev ed, elimination of below 100 level courses, all of those things really looking at systems and how we can make change to improve our outcomes. But it also is equally important to do that at a local level. We have to do both. It's multifaceted, right? So where do we stand? What does this look like today? We definitely were dealt a blow with some of the progress that we were making with the pandemic, but we're trending back in the right direction. And I'm always happy to share, going back to Dr. Britt's earlier comments, how we compare locally and benchmarking with our own sister colleges. We are 66% term-to-term retention compared to all of Maricopa at 60%. And that's despite our students being a higher percentage of first generation, higher percentage of Pell eligible, higher percentage of a lot of the social vulnerability index factors that we look at, and yet our students persist above the Maricopa overall rate. Same with academic year retention, 57% compared to 52%. So that's something I think we can be proud of, despite knowing we need to do more. So 66%, 2 in 3. That means 1 in 3 are not. And I don't love that number, and I know you all don't love that number either. But we have some promising practices, we have some promising results, again, in some specific cohorts that we're looking at. So let's talk about new students. We've been wanting this data for quite a while. Some of the new student experiences have been so critical to the guided pathways work. Students who go through our Bear Tracks experience and our NSO, or our new student orientation, also called My College Orientation. We have participation numbers, but we haven't always done a great job of assessing what happens when they leave those experiences. How do they do in their first semester? How do they do in their first term? How do they do beyond? So if you look at that top bar, We actually have data now from fall 22 to 23 and 23 to spring 24. The all FTIC, that's first time in college. So all first time in college students, term-to-term retention, 61% and 55% respectively. Now look at students who completed My College Orientation and who completed the combination of My College Orientation and Bear Tracks. Those students were retained at 76% and 78% in the last year. So that's pretty exciting. 38% to 78%, that's a 40% increase in student retention. Let's give that a round of applause. So we know that's correlation, not causation, but I think those numbers are impressive nonetheless. So what else are we doing? I wanted to highlight one other really exciting initiative. We write grant initiatives, and we don't always know the result. We don't always talk at a college level about what's working well with those grant initiatives and what the results are. So I wanted to report first-year data for our HOPE initiative. So this was a grant that was written in response to our HOPE survey that we conducted in 2023 that revealed 14% of our students indicated they were either homeless or experiencing housing insecurity. So to address this, our phenomenal counseling department, faculty and staff, submitted and were awarded a nearly $1 million grant from the Office of Post-Secondary Education to co-create and pilot an innovative, sustainable, and scalable student housing model with the goals that you see. So in its first year, this initiative has provided over $213,000 to students in the form of security deposits, rent, utilities, transportation stipends, serving a total of 26 students and already successfully graduating 6 from the program. So the majority of those participants have increased their income throughout their time, and 100% of the graduated participants have maintained self-sufficiency and reside in permanent housing. So let's give that a round of applause as well. So these are just 2 examples of what this looks like, focusing on a large population, a large N, all new students, and then also focusing on a smaller population, a specific aspect of one person's work or one department's circle of influence related to student retention. In this case, these are our most vulnerable students. And so it's not always about the large N or scalability, but balancing, ensuring that we've got practices that are scalable, but also paying attention and not forgetting about our most vulnerable who are in critical need of additional support. So last, I just wanted to celebrate a couple other things happening in student affairs. And by no means is this an exhaustive list. Our support for students in terms of basic needs continue to impress. We had over 3,000 students served in the resource room last year, nearly 5,000 through grab-and-go lunches, and 3,000 in the mobile food distribution. Remember that FAFSA simplification, not so simple simplification debacle? Our FA team stood up for the challenge, and you can see our fall 24 disbursements were greater than, despite all the challenges, the fall 23 disbursements. So that is something that really required a Herculean effort. So many info sessions, so many students served through chat and phones and email and at the counter to get them through that very, very challenging experience. I'm happy to share that this year, so far, it has been a much smoother road for our students and for our staff. But this past year was really an incredible effort to increase our disbursements overall to students. So let's give our FA team some gratitude. Last, please join me in congratulating our student life and leadership staff and all involved in helping PC be named the 2024 All-In Most Engaged Campus for College Student Voting. So there's much more I could share, lots of people and departments that are deserving of recognition, but I hope you see these few examples as just demonstration of our collective commitment to supporting our students, creating a space where they feel they belong, where they're engaged, where they can and they will persist and complete and where we no longer tolerate equity gaps to exist. So like most of the work we do, we know there's no easy fix or quick fix, but we continue to stand up for the challenge and prove that Phoenix College is the flagship. We are doing more. We are going above and beyond. We are willing to fail. What was the term? I loved that term. Say it again. Fail fast. I love that. We're not afraid to try new things and innovate and fail and learn and assess and continue the loop and apply those lessons. And we prove that again and again and again. So looking forward to a new term, a successful spring. Welcome back, and so happy to partner with you once again. I am going to now turn it over to Angela.
Hello, folks. Happy New Year. All right, let's get started. I want to make sure to save a little bit of time so we can have our brilliant president up on stage today. All right. We promised that safety would remain a priority of this campus, and it is. So let's go over a little bit of the stats that Matt provided to me. Let me make them so I can see them. Calls overall, roughly 2,700 basic lockouts when you guys forget your keys, forget your badges, etc. The thing that was concerning to me when Matt brought up that our thefts were up, although you see 13 and it went up to 21, you're thinking big deal, but that's over 60%. So as a little reminder, it's an open campus. Just don't leave your stuff. I mean, it's not your home as much as you'd like to think this is your home away from home. It is, but just watch your stuff. Matt and his team have done an exceptional job this last year, doing things for the campus community to help us be more prepared for an event. We have been doing drills this year, community events, systems testings, and most importantly, in my opinion, the safety briefings. Him and his staff have met with over 21 departments to go over things like emergency procedures, what to do in case of emergencies. A lot of employees have always wondered, hey, what do I do in an emergency? I'm in a corner. I don't have any immediate exit. What do I do? So Matt and his staff are willing to go to any department meetings, meet with anyone to help you guys figure this kind of stuff out, to help you feel like you're more prepared in case of an emergency. Nice. Our gym remodel. The end is near. The completion date for the gym, less than 3 weeks away, and the gym will be completed. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of going at any tours there, I don't know if Joe would like the fact that I'm calling them tours, but if you're interested in seeing the facilities before they are completely done, now is the time to do it. It's really impressive, especially the gym. Had to cut back on some of the slides that I had for you today, but the fact that that's going to be done is a bit of a relief for our athletic team and our students. Budget outlook. This is my last slide, and you'll see I didn't put anything too specific on there. So we do have a governing board member here right now. Nothing's been approved by the governing board yet. That will happen this month. So once the things have been approved, we can have more of a conversation. So we will definitely be having, the budget steering team will be educated on our new budget model if the board approves it. The budget steering team will be informed and educated on all of that, and then we will do probably at least multiple budget conversation, forum, talk type things so that the campus community can understand the way the new budget model will work. I have every reason to believe we are optimistic about where PC is. I think the worst is behind us. I think the budget cuts that we've sustained over the last 5 years are going to be the worst of it. So as long as we maintain our momentum, our enrollment, our FTSE, all of this stuff, remains either flat or increases, I don't think we will be handling any more of the massive budget cuts we've sustained. Yeah. Please remember, I did not say we were getting any money back, but we are flat. We are where we are. We have every reason to believe that the board will approve the planned way for the district office to balance the Fund 1 budget for district-wide, which is why we would not have another budget cut next year. So that's super news. And then there was a third thing on the budget. Well, there's that. The only way there's going to be more money in the operating fund for the colleges to have is if we increase enrollment. So if all the colleges can increase enrollment, then we will get more money. But that being said, Deb, I believe, are you next? Get on up here. But stay tuned for more budget information as we get the approval. Once it's approved, then I can discuss things with you, but I can't discuss things that haven't been approved yet. But be hopeful, folks, because I am. And you'll know that doesn't happen too often. Here's Deb.
Good morning. I'm Deb Spots. I am the Associate VP of Institutional Advancement. And if those words don't mean anything, it's Alumni Development, Marketing, and PR. Joining me on stage is my friend Alfredo, and I'll introduce why he's here in a minute. But I'm here this morning to share with you some news about a campaign that you may have heard a little bit about, or you may have seen a video from the Chancellor about, called Empowered for Student Success. It has been many years since our district has undertaken a fundraising campaign. COVID put a little bit of a delay. We were intending to do this a few years ago, but that put a kibosh on it for a little while, and we regrouped. And because of some changes in the environment of philanthropy and fundraising in general, our district decided to focus on the things that students need the most to be successful. So the Empowered campaign is a multi-year fundraising initiative to raise $20 million across our district. It is, again, a collaboration of our entire district, the foundation, and all 10 colleges. And it will address financial barriers for students. So basically, the goal of the campaign is to meet the need from where Pell-eligible students have the money they need for tuition, but they have other expenses that they have, real-life needs, tuition, transportation, childcare, all the things that prevent them from staying in school. These are PC's priorities, and you can read, so I'm not going to talk about that, but I will talk about the fact that any gifts that come into the school during this campaign can support any program on campus. So if your program or department is not listed here, don't fear, we can still raise money for your part of the school, and we will, and we are. The campaign was kicked off right before winter break, and we had a number of board members there, Dr. Narini included, thank you. And we heard from several of our lead donors, so I'm excited to share that quite a lot of money has already come in. When you do a campaign like this, you do it in phases, and the silent phase has been in operation for about 1.5 years, where we have built a case for support of why our students are so deserving, and that work has been noticed by some very large foundations. So I'm going to share just a few of them with you. The Lowe's Foundation gave us $1 million for the construction trades programs at Rio, Mesa, and South Mountain. Helios is giving us $8.2 million to support underrepresented students. They're also giving us $1.5 million for the Maricopa Promise program and as matching gifts for Title V. The Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust has committed funding for foster youth and reaffirmed their Nina Mason Scholars Program. The Salt River Pima Indian Community has committed money to remove barriers for all 10 of our, what are used to be called food pantries, resource rooms. And just before winter break, APS and the Bruce and Diane Holly Foundation each committed $1 million to the campaign. Locally, you'll see on the screen, For those of you who have been here for a while, may remember Gail Jameson. She and her husband both taught at PC, and they left a nice $200,000 gift to support art students at PC. And just before we went on winter break, Whataburger reaffirmed their 3-year commitment to our resource room with a $50,000 gift. So we've raised over $11 million, so we're halfway toward our $20 million goal, more than halfway. So that's amazing, and that's where you want to be when you kick off a campaign. You want enthusiasm, you want the larger community and our environment here in the metro area to be excited about what we're doing and want to be a part of it. We came out just ahead of the very large school down the street that will be doing a similar campaign and launching this month. So we wanted to get some enthusiasm, momentum before the big shark in town decided they were going to launch the same kind of campaign. But every gift, no matter how big or how small, significantly impacts our goal. So your support is vital, and you can sign up to be a supporter of this program in multiple ways. So one, if you have great student and alumni success stories, please share them with us. I want to recognize Christy Flora, who's sitting over here. She's our marketing manager, and she and her team, our whole team, does a great job of shining a light on amazing stories. So if you have a great story, please share it with us. Marketing at phoenixcollege.edu couldn't be easier, or you can go onto the website and fill out a form that provides all the details. You can also follow and share PC on social media, because when you do that, it amplifies our stories. So please do that. If you don't know what all of our social handles are, you can go to phoenixcollege.edu/social, and you'll find them all there. Who do you know that might want to help us? Sometimes I hear that you have a neighbor or a friend or your spouse's best buddy is somebody that works at one of these companies that may want to provide internships for our students, or might want to start a scholarship because they have a serious need in a particular industry and they don't know how to get more students to come into that industry. Well, the barrier may be that they can't afford to come to school. So share that network with us as well. And here's where I introduce you to my amazing friend Alfredo, who is our development officer. And if you have not had a chance to work with him yet, you will, because in about 10 days, I am moving to Massachusetts. So I'm going to miss working with all of you. It has been the honor of my lifetime to serve this school and work alongside of you. I encourage you to become a donor to this program, because our students are, as you well know, so very deserving. And we look forward to achieving this goal with you and celebrating, and maybe I'll come back for the party. Thank you all this morning. This is the URL to donate, and when there's an after message from this, we'll provide that so you have it again as well. Now please welcome Dr. Britt back to the podium.
Please join me in thanking Deb for her many years her incredible years of service to Phoenix College. Deb, you've certainly left an indelible mark. You've launched many, many wonderful programs and told the story of Phoenix College so very well, and we're going to miss you. I hope you enjoy that snow. There's a lot of it if you can get in there soon, but I do hope you will be very happy on the East Coast. You're going to a wonderful place, and we certainly wish you all the best, and we will be cheering you on, and maybe we'll come visit you in August when we need to cool off a little bit. The committee gave me some instructions. The faculty give me instructions. Don't repeat anything at the faculty meeting that you shared at Convocation. We want some new stuff. And I was told today to keep it uplifting and inspiring and all of that. And I think sometimes when you want to inspire, you also have to calm. That you can't inspire people who are feeling anxious or worried about the budget. And Angela shared a little bit of good news. And I wanted to build upon Angela's remarks. But before I do that, I want to look back to a certain week in December. So I found myself in the administration building in the second week in December. Angela was on a cruise ship somewhere in the Pacific. I don't know. I wrote her and said, "Where are you?" And she told me. I still don't know where it was. Teresa was remote. Anthony, I think, was in Flagstaff. Heather, I think, was women's mentor somewhere. She was working, was not here. Lisa was with the Sea Lions, somehow got 2 days off. I didn't approve it, somebody else did. Ty, I think, sneaked away to Mexico, I believe. Duru had the crud. The baby had given it to her a second time. Bree had gotten a hold of something. Melissa and her team might have been at Performance Success. I can't remember. There were 1 or 2 people in HR. I think most of IR was remote. Deb and her team were working on something somewhere. Basically, I was unsupervised. Anywho, that day, I don't know, like 10 contracts came in for approval. Angela normally does the contracts, districts writing, and all of a sudden they needed all the contracts all at one time. And then course fees rained in from the sky. And all of the course fees needed digital signatures. Well, normally I don't do the digital signatures. I just type approved, and then Bree puts the digital signatures on there. And then the contracts, some of them need a digital signature, some of them you just click approved. And then some of them, you've got to do them a different way. There's like a signature here and an approved there. It just doesn't happen the same way. The faculty are coming in to meet with me an hour later, and like I can do a digital signature on my phone if I just have one document, but there are 8, and they're all on the same email. So basically, it took me like an hour to find my digital signature on my computer because Bree has it, I don't have it, so I'm trying to get it off of my phone onto my computer. Anyway, all hell rained down. So I tell you all of this that you can never leave me unsupervised again, because I can't sign anything. I can only type approved. So I just wanted you to know that all of you are important and that I will be approving everybody's vacations and professional trainings so I'm not left alone again. But anyway, it was funny, but it taught me a great lesson of something that I already know, and that is each of you are incredibly valuable, and that you make this place really, really special. And when you're not here, I really miss you a lot. Not because I can't do my digital signature all by myself, but each of you make this place brighter and special. And I knew that before I was sitting over there all by myself that day. But when you're gone, it reminds me of that a little more. So if you ever doubt how much light and joy you bring, just let that be the reminder. And while you're away and I'm struggling to put my signature on that, if you ever wanted to pay me back for anything, just know you did. So I wanted to just say thank you for just being so amazing and just being amazingly wonderful people who make this place operate so wonderfully, because you don't find that everywhere, but each of you truly are wonderful, amazing people. So I've heard a lot of people with all these new goals: dry January, dry February for the overachievers, people joining gyms and changing their diets and all the wonderful things. And I wanted to tell you what my New Year's resolutions are. None. Nothing. Nothing. Not because I think I'm perfect. I certainly do not. There are lots of things that I can improve upon. But why bother? I'm just going to drop those suckers. I had a Bloody Mary at brunch on Sunday. So thank you. Why? Because you're better off if I do. Stubbed my toe getting out of the bed on Saturday, first curse word dropped. So changing my language didn't happen. I got that frustration out. It's over with. So I don't need to strive for this perfection. It's over. I have already failed, and I can get back to my normal, corrupt, miserable self. I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to let the rest of you who are aiming for that perfection continue on your journey, and I will cheer you on the rest of the 2 months, those of you who are doing that. And you know who you are. But please do not take your withdrawal symptoms out on me. Take them out on your colleagues. Keep that mess out, because I'm already struggling enough with that digital signature. So, there's nothing wrong with that. But how about at New Year, we think about doubling down on the things that make us awesome? Because when I think about PC, I think about doubling down on what we're so good at rather than changing where we want to grow. Because what makes us great is what I focus on about this institution. Doubling down on what makes us, what is it we say, Ty? It's not about winning, but we're winning. When we joined Achieving the Dream, what they taught us was to capitalize on our strengths and focus on one or two and double down on those. And as we focus on our strengths, we begin to really grow and transform as an institution. And what a concept. At the end of the year, we begin to think about those one or two things that we really want to change about ourselves. And that's good. Positive growth is good, and having those goals is great. It's all about discipline and eating better and becoming healthier. There's nothing wrong with that. But what about doubling down on our strengths? And that's what we're going to do as an institution. I want to go back to where I started, though, offering you a sense of calm. We had a really tough fall. We had a lot weighing on us with the budget. And I know that that anxiety was permeating throughout this college because we all have to pay bills. And in the back of our minds, am I going to lose my job? Will I have a job? Are my hours going to be reduced? What is that going to mean? That matters, and that is not lost on me. And the board does have to make decisions, and we need to respect that. But I think the worst is behind us, as Angela shared. We still have work to do. Even if everything goes our way with what we know in the budget model, we can't live on the edge of a fiscal cliff. We've got to have money in the bank, as we say. We've got to have a little bit of reserve. So we're going to have to do just a little bit more work. But I don't think we're going to have to get out the saw and cut bone. We don't have to live, I think, in that fear anymore. I think we're going to be fine as an institution. But we're going to have to operate efficiently and thoughtfully so that we can be strategic and innovative. So we've got a little bit more work to do, especially in the program space. Because we all know that the reason we're where we are is based on the numbers that Heather shared. We have grown and rebounded as an institution. But teaching and educating those students comes with a cost, and we're not really funded based on that enrollment growth as a college. And so more classes means a higher payroll, right? And as that went up and our budget got smaller, we became unbalanced. And honestly, we can truly know that all of the colleges in Maricopa truly are underfunded. We all need more money, but we have a responsibility to operate within the budget that we have. And so we're almost there, and making sure that our expenses align with our budget. And so the painful anxiety, I think, is almost behind us. And so as you leave here today, you can put that worry behind you for PC. We do have work we will have to do as a district, because there's not new money, but there is a redistribution of money. And so even though I think we're going to be okay, we'll have to redistribute money within the system. And so there will be work to be done system-wide. And we'll be there helping and supporting and leading the way in that work, obviously. And that will lead to decisions. We'll have to do some program cleanup, folks. We have programs with very little enrollment and very few completers. And so our academic affairs leadership will have to take a look at that. The third thing that we have to do, we've put a lot of positions on hold. And so to bring those back, we have to first balance and then be thoughtful and strategic as we bring positions back online. We're still a little ways away from that, but we will be able to do that. So our program cleanup, looking at positions, but we also need to be thoughtful in the direction that we're going to go as an institution. What do our students need, and what do we need to look at and look like to best support our students? So we'll be looking at all of those things in the coming year, and I'm excited about that. But I think that that future is bright and hopeful and a lot less scary than it was a year ago. So there's more work to do, but I don't think we have to hold our breath as much as we did a year ago. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. I want to leave you with one other thought about PC. I'm rounding out my third year as the president of Phoenix College, and it has flown by. I feel like I've been here 6 months. I can't believe that I'm closing out those 3 years. And the work that we have done, the excellent work that we have done in those 3 years, is mind-boggling at times for me. I am extremely proud of where we've come, not just the 3 years that I've been president, but the 4 years that I've been here, and where we were when I arrived and where we are now. I hope that you'll take some time as you think about your New Year's resolution that you have, that you're holding on to for the next 30 or 60 days. I hope you'll reflect about Phoenix College over the last 4 years, and you'll ponder how much we've done. Even with challenging budget times, even with changing leadership, we have accomplished so much in a pandemic. We've increased retention. We've achieved national recognition based on work and outcomes. We've been accepted and earned a space as achieving the dream college. That is not given, that is earned. You don't just show up and say, hi. You have to have accomplished things to be accepted into that room, and we are there because of you and your work. And we've done it with budget challenges. We know how to get things done. And it's not always easy, and sometimes it's ugly, and sometimes it's messy, and we have starts and we have to go again, but we get it done. And this morning we talked a little bit about AI, and I want to tie that together because we have some data and AI sessions. And there's one takeaway that I want to go back to, and that is how AI will affect our ability to help ensure our students succeed. And Dr. Wellborn and I were having conversations about this, as well as Roberto before the break. And that is that AI will be able to help us know which students to help. It will be predictive, and it will be able to identify tracks And it will be able to pinpoint students when they enroll to be able to help us to apply technologies to certain students to ensure that we give them the supports that they need to be successful. It will move from that predictive state, and it will allow us to ensure that they have what they need to succeed. Colleges that ignore AI will be consumed by it. Colleges that learn how to embrace AI and move with it will become more and more successful at being able to uphold academic standards, but be able to ensure that students succeed. And it's what we do in the Student Services Department that will impact and how we apply AI there, that will enable us to accelerate the student supports. I'm at time. I'm actually over by about 4 minutes. But I want to wish you an incredible spring semester. I will be around, and I'll be in the sessions. I'll be with the faculty today, and I will be in the sessions throughout the week. I've carved out time on my calendar to be able to spend time with you. I look forward to conversations. And the last thing I want to close with is that I am committed to having at least 2 budget town halls with you in February. We weren't able to offer the transparency of our financial plan moving forward because of timing today. We're waiting for the board's decision, and we're waiting for our Q2 burn report so that we have an idea of how we're doing with our annual spending this year. And once we have that, we will be able to share with you much more details and transparency about where we are as an institution and where we're going. So I plan to have 2 town halls with you probably toward the end of February to give our fiscal team time to prepare, Anthony specifically, the specific information that we need. And that will allow us to have open dialogue with each of you who are interested in coming and answer your questions. We believe in full transparency. You know that about us. And then you'll have a better understanding of the fiscal picture for Phoenix College. I don't want you to feel like you're being shortchanged today. It's just the timing didn't allow us to go into the depth, and that's why you got 2 words on Angela's slide. We just couldn't do it today, but we are committed to offering you those details, so they'll be coming in February for you. We'll announce those and share them. We'll do 2 to make sure that we are able to get in as many of you as possible. We'd love for you to join in person. We like to see your faces, and we will record those sessions for those of you who are not able to attend in person. I hope you have a wonderful semester. I hope your New Year's resolutions stick to at least April. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye.